Hi guys. Today we're on day 3 of slope-intercept form. Each day we have learned a different way to write an equation in slope-intercept form. On our first day we were given a point and a slope, and yesterday we were given 2 points. Today we're going to learn how to write an equation in slope-intercept form given a line. This will be similar to the Desmos activity that we were doing in class yesterday. So here is our first example. So we have a line drawn on a graph. And the goal is to write something in slope-intercept form. If you have forgotten, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And in slope-intercept form, the y and the x will stay letters, and the m and the b will need to be replaced with numbers. And so our goal is to stare at the graph and try to figure out what the m and the b are. When I'm doing these problems, I always like to start by trying to find the letter B, because the letter B is the y-intercept. And that's just 1 point, 1 dot. So if we can find where my line is crossing the y-axis, now the y-axis is the one that goes up and down, okay? So this is my y-axis, and then the left and right one, the horizontal one, is my x-axis. So if I can find where the line is crossing the y-axis, then I can find my y-intercept. And so looking at my y-axis, my y-intercept should be right here. This is a point, a dot, so I'm going to write an ordered pair for it. And so the ordered pair for my y-intercept is 0, 2. Now for plugging this into my slope formula up here, I am just going to use the number 2. I won't be using the number 0. But when we're talking about a point, I always like to write it as an ordered pair. Okay, that's half the information I need to write slope-intercept form. That's the intercept part. The next thing I need to do is I need to find the slope part. To find the slope from a graph, you need 2 points. Now, lucky for us, we've already found one of them. We can use our y-intercept as one of the points. So now I just need to find a second point. When you're looking for a point on a graph, you do want it to be crossing a nice whole number, so you want it to be crossing on one of these little intersections. You don't want to pick a spot where it's in the white space or where it's half between two lines. We also need to make sure that the point is somewhere on the line that they drew. So you have some options, but I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to choose right here because that is where it's crossing on those nice whole numbers again. So I've got my 2 points. And then to find the slope, what we're going to do is we're going to end up making a right triangle where the line is the hypotenuse, and then we need to run vertically and horizontally. When I'm creating my right triangle, I always like to start with the left dot. And you will start by either rising up or falling down, depending on where your second dot is. For this example with my 2 dots, I need to start at my left dot and I'll need to fall down. And I'm going to fall down until I'm level with my second dot. Then I'm going to run and I will either run to the right or the left. And in this example, I will be running to the right. As you can see from my red lines, I started at my left dot. I rose downward and I ran to the right. So we're looking for vertical and horizontal directions on how to get from one dot to the other dot. To find the numbers for the slope, you'll need to count how far did you rise and how far did you run. So when I start at my top dot and I rise downward, I'm rising downward 3 boxes. So my rise will be a -3. Since I had to go down, it's a negative. And again, we're counting boxes, 1, 2, 3 boxes. From this new spot, I'm going to run and I'm running to the right, and I'm counting my boxes and there's 1, 2 boxes. So since I'm running to the right, it's a positive and I counted 2 boxes. So my slope, my rise over my run is -3 over +2, or just -3 over 2. That's my slope, my m. And I now have all the information I need to write slope-intercept form. So I'm going to just take my numbers and plug them into this formula up here. So my m is going to go right next to my letter x, and then my 2 is going to go, it's going to be added after the letter X. And so my final answer to this problem is y equals -3/2 times X and then plus 2. Please notice that the fraction is separate from the letter X. So it goes fraction, then X. And then we have something added or subtracted if it was negative at the end. Let's try one more together before you try your homework tonight. So here I have another graph of a line. Again, we're going to write something in slope-intercept form today. And so slope-intercept form is y equals something times x plus something else. So we just got to figure out what are those two missing numbers. I like to start with the y-intercept because it's just a single dot. And again, remember the y-axis is the vertical axis, the one going up and down. So my y-intercept should be right here. That is at the -1 on the y-axis, and that is replacing this section right here. Now, since it's crossing at -1, I am going to put x minus 1. So when it crosses in the negatives, then you write it as subtracting instead of adding. The other thing I need to find to go right up here is my slope. So to find my slope, I'll need a second dot. I can use my first dot, and then I also need a second one. Now I can see at least 3 different places where a decent dot can be drawn. I could draw a dot down here because it's crossing on whole numbers. Remember, we don't want to draw anything in the white space or if it's halfway between some lines. I could draw a dot here, and that's the dot I chose. Or you could also draw a dot up here. So it doesn't matter where your dot is. You should get the same answer every time. Now, I always like to draw my right triangle starting with my left dot. So starting with my left dot, I will either rise up or down. And based on where my second dot is, I'm going to rise up. And then I will either run to the right or to the left. And based on where my second dot is, I will be running to the right. So here, again, I started at my leftmost dot and I ran up and to the right, up and right. Next, I just need to count how many boxes I rose and ran. So from here, from my left dot, I'm rising up 2 boxes. So that's a +2 for my rise. And then once I get to this new spot, I'm going to run to the right 3 boxes. So that's a +3 for my run. Rise over run. So my rise over run, my slope for this one is 2/3. Again, notice that the 2/3, the fraction, is written next to the letter x. The x is not part of the fraction. So it goes fraction, letter. Make sure that those are next to each other. This concludes our first video for today. Tonight's homework is in your textbook, and we also have some sections of Delta Math.